Good morning. They Call Me Mix. This book is written in Spanish as well as in English. The author is Lourdes Rivas. This is illustrated by Breena Nunez. The author, by the way, is a teacher down in California. I can't remember what city, but I met them when they first published this book. So, author says, thank you for supporting this book, showing up for the youth, and spreading the love. Great meeting you. This is dedicated to every student I've ever worked with, from Linwood to San Francisco to Boyle Heights to Oakland to Berkeley. Boy or a girl? Are you a boy or a girl? How can you be both? Some days I am both. Some days I am neither. Most days I am everything in between. Before I was born, my mom had two different names ready for me, Daniel and Lourdes. I would be Daniel, like my tío, if they decided I was a boy, and Lourdes, like my tía, if they decided I was a girl. Both names come from my mom's siblings in Mexico. When I was born, everyone decided and agreed that I was a girl, so they named me Lourdes. As a kid, I never felt like just a girl. I never felt right knowing everyone was deciding and agreeing that I was a girl. I also didn't feel like just a boy. I knew in my heart that I could never choose one or the other. I knew in my heart that I wanted to be free every day to just be me, without thinking about choosing only girl or only boy. I always felt like a little of both. I wanted people to believe me. I wanted people to celebrate me. I imagined myself like a book. My outside cover told only one part of my story. Inside, I was bursting with imagination. Even though I knew this, I still didn't know how to explain it to anyone else but myself, so I went on agreeing with what others called me. Agreeing with others was like ignoring my heart. Ignoring your heart makes everything very difficult. You should never ignore your heart. They want to be celebrated. Look at the difference. Right? That's how we feel when we're feeling celebrated or we're feeling like people are accepting us. That's usually how we're feeling when we're not being accepted or not being understood. It's not a good feeling. Oh, I just noticed there's like a little picture, like within the picture. Wow. I wonder what that means. I've read this book so many times and just noticed that. Wow. Have you ever noticed how almost everything is divided into boys and girls? People create categories because they think it makes life easier. This kind of thinking is binary. It's either one or the other. Binary is, I know some of you know how to code. So I know you might have heard that word before. Binary means, it means two. So that first word, that prefix bi, it's kind of like bicycle. It means two. Um, then the coding world, when you're doing computing, it's like what, zeros and ones, I believe. And so it's what we call the base two system. In our Western society, in our math society, we have a base 10 system. That's some random facts, but just letting you know. When it comes to people, especially people like me, gender categories like boy and girl make so many things difficult. What should I do? Where do I fit in? Where can I fit in? Here, we are transgender. We are not one or the other. We flow free like water in a river. We are non binary. We're not just girls. We're not just boys. We're both and everything in between. Everything makes sense. I understand more of who I am. I can share how I feel now. This is your community, right? I learned it's okay to disagree with everyone who looks at me and says I am a girl. It's okay to say I'm not just a girl or just a boy. I'm both and everything in between. Instead of she, you can just say my name or use they. Go ahead, try it. No. So I'm not just a boy, I'm not just a girl. So if we're having a hard time with that pronoun, because we always want to have pronouns, in our language and in most languages, pronouns is the basis of things. We have gendered languages, and so it gets really hard. And what the author was saying was, is when even when they are writing in Spanish, Spanish is a gendered language. There are feminine and masculine words. And so, even having to write in Spanish, the author is having to create new words because these words have not existed before in the language. So, that in itself is pretty radical to think that when there's not a word or something for us, we have to make it, right? We find our community. Many people understand that my gender is something for only me to decide. They ask what I'd like to be called. They learn to use non binary words for me like they, or just use my name. They support me. And some people cannot understand how it is possible for me to disagree with them and decide my own gender. They continue saying I'm a girl. They continue using the pronoun she for me. Sometimes they even use hurtful words towards me. They disregard how I feel and what I need. I stay away and try to ignore them. I stay away and try to remember that they have learning to do. I stay away and try not to let it bother me too much. Thankfully, I met and made friends with other smart, talented, and beautiful non binary people. We get together and do fun things like have barbecues, play games, build bonfires, go camping, go on bike rides, watch movies, make art, attend protests, create films, take pictures of each other, dance a lot, cook food together. Right? And you see these protesting signs, right? This is where solidarity comes in. Because in this world, allies aren't good enough. I need you to be in solidarity and be my comrade. Make sure to find your community. We listen to each other. We believe each other. We celebrate each other. I grew up and became a teacher. I am a non binary teacher. I teach my students about respecting all genders. We practice with each other. The X, and that's why it's mix. Instead of Mr. or Miss, we put MX. Sometimes you'll see that at the end of a word, and that just means all people, right? This is just referring to all folks, everyone. I teach my students that non binary people look, dress, and sound all kinds of different ways. I teach my students that it's okay to change and play with words to make them fit us. My students learn to call me Mix Lourdes because I am a mix. And you too can decide for yourself. If you ever feel in your heart that you don't agree with what people say you are, remember that there are many of us out there cheering you on. Speak your truth. Live your truth. Being transgender is being free. Being transgender is fearless. Being transgender is beautiful. Here is the author and the illustrator. Beautiful brown people. It is really important to read books and have books like this. Again, this isn't something that you're going to see in your normal public school. Um, Actually, all of the books I've been reading today are all from my Freedom School. They were all from the Freedom School library. You can go onto the CDF website and you can see the list of books that they recommend. Um, I absolutely prefer and choose to read books that are for us and by us. It is really crucial, not just to have diverse characters in books. What is diversity? I don't like that word, but that's another talk. But it's very important to have books that are written for us and written by us, and not just a character that's in the book that has their hat to the side, talks a little slang. It's crucial for children to be able to have a way to be able to express themselves. It's really crucial for us as humans to be able to have the words to articulate our feelings and our emotions. It gives us the tools and the power for us to be able to advocate for ourselves. And so I hope you really enjoyed this book. This is, no, actually, no, this wasn't from my Freedom School. I apologize. I back up. I read two books earlier today that were from Freedom School. This one I found out from, it was a read aloud. The author themselves was coming to Seattle to do a read aloud at a cafe up on Capitol Hill. That's what it was. It was like a bookstore or something. I found out that this author was coming, and again, I'm always doing work on myself as a teacher, as a human, as a mother. I'm always having to do work on myself. And it's a culturally like part of my vernacular to when I'm speaking to someone, if they present as what, society has taught me to be as a girl, I will actually talk to them and I'll be like, oh, hey, girl, or if they're dressed or looking like what society has taught me is a male, I'm often like, oh boy, what are you talking about? And I have to remember that even though that's part of my vernacular, I also have to be mindful and respectful that that is not how others see themselves. And so I oftentimes have to back up and then explain, okay, this is a cultural thing for me, but it's not something that I can unlearn. Um, when I'm in space with certain people. It's kind of like not code switching, but actually switching the way that we are thinking about those around us. And it's not about tolerating people. It's not just like, oh, I accept you for who you are. It's not about acceptance or tolerance. It's truly just about just that radical love, right? I am who I am and you are who you are, and that is perfectly okay, right? And moving from that acceptance and that tolerance to actually having like radical love for ourselves and for others. So I hope you enjoyed this read aloud and many lessons with Miss Nicole. Have a blessed day.